r/nosleep. Hosted by you/Carl1961. Mr. Christmas. It's that time of the year again. That wonderful, all too brief season that fills my heart with a warm surge of joy and makes me feel like a young boy again, giddy with excitement, enchanted by the magic that seems to hang over everything like an invisible aura. Christmas time. My favorite holiday. My favorite time of the year, period. I love Christmas so much. I always have, ever since I was a kid. Not because it meant Santa Claus was going to bring us presents, but just the overall atmosphere of the holiday. That sense of warmth and fellowship that seems to be lacking in people during the rest of the year. Peace and goodwill. Not that I don't enjoy the rest of the festivities associated with the holiday. The decorations, the bustling stores with people doing their shopping, the smell of fir trees, the aroma of fresh baked sugar cookies, the sound of bells ringing, Christmas songs playing on the radio, strings of brightly colored lights, stockings hanging from a mantle above a roaring fire, exchanging Christmas cards. I love all of those things. They only add to the sense of childlike wonder and innocence I feel when this time of the year rolls around, the growing excitement of knowing Christmas is on its way, a time of magic, and anything can happen. I think about Christmas all the time. It's the only thing I look forward to the whole year. And I always feel a sense of sadness, no, actually grief, when the holidays end and come January 2nd it's time to throw out the tree, take down the lights, pack up the decorations and put them away for another year. But then I remind myself that just means there's another Christmas on its way and I begin to get excited again in anticipation of next December. I think I inherited this love of Christmas from my mother, who was an even bigger Christmas fanatic than me, if you can believe that. That woman sure loved Christmas. As soon as Thanksgiving was over, she'd pull the boxes containing our decorations out of the basement and transform our house into a winter wonderland, inside and out. Every window would have strings of colored lights framing it. A big plastic Santa stood at the end of our driveway, one arm raised to wave at passing cars. Mechanical reindeers stood in our yard, nodding their heads up and down and turning them side to side. And the tree, oh, the tree. She was always very careful about selecting the best tree she could find at our local tree farm. It had to be just the right height and thickness, the needles lush and perfectly green. Sometimes she'd spend days searching, and then, when she found it, she'd have the man who owned the Christmas tree farm cut it down and load it into her car. And when we got home, I'd help her set it up in the tree stand, and she'd go about stringing it with lights and balls and ornaments, always saving the big silver star for last. And after she put the star on top, she'd have me plug in the lights and the tree would come to life, so bright and radiant and beautiful. She loved the tree so much she refused to let me help her decorate it. I can understand why, though. I was a very clumsy kid. She was probably afraid I'd drop one of the ornaments and break it, like that time I broke a plate doing the dishes. Oh, boy, was she mad about that. She got out Dad's old belt and beat me black and blue, then locked me in the basement for a whole week without food. I sure learned my lesson. I never broke another plate ever again. I sure miss that woman. She brought me up right after Dad died, doing it all on her own, teaching me wrong from right. She made sure I grew up decent and never got into any of the naughty stuff the other kids were getting into, drinking and smoking and making filth. She kept me away from them, and the dirty filthy whores who wanted to put bad ideas in my head and make filth with them. One time she caught me making filth by myself with a dirty magazine I found on the way home from school one day. She shoved the hand I was using to make filth into a pot of boiling water for 10 whole seconds, then warned me that if she ever caught me making filth again, she'd do the same thing to the bad thing I was touching. It was the worst pain I ever felt in my whole life, and afterwards I had to keep my hand bandaged for 2 whole weeks to cover the blisters and peeling skin. I still have the scars on my hand to remind of that time I was naughty. She told me to tell anyone who asked about it at school that I accidentally cut my hand doing chores. I resented her for doing it at the time, but now that I'm older I understand that she was doing it for my own good, so I wouldn't turn into a bad boy. The other kids at school didn't understand me or my mother because we were so different from everyone else. They bullied me and called me names like freak and weirdo and made fun of me because of the old-fashioned clothes my mother made me wear. This one boy Donald even used to beat me up. My mother would just tell me it was because they were jealous that I was good and they were bad and didn't have the Christmas spirit. They were naughty children who would grow up to be naughty grown-ups and would always be on Santa's bad list and never get anything but lumps of coal in their stockings. She told me I should try to share some Christmas cheer with them, so that's just what I did. And those kids never bothered me again. As I said before, I love Christmas. And everyone in my neighborhood seems to know that. That's why they nicknamed me Mr. Christmas. My house is always the best decorated house on the street, and every December I moonlight as Santa Claus for the kids at the local mall, in addition to working my real job as a technician for a home security firm. I love playing the part, so much so that I've grown a full beard that I wear the whole year round, just for this special time, and each December I dye it white. I could wear a fake beard, but I wouldn't want to spoil the illusion for the children, and want to make their experience as authentic as I possibly can. I'm sitting in the plastic throne on the main concourse, Christmas music playing over the mall PA system, a long line of kids awaiting their turn to sit on my lap and get their photo taken with me. I have 2 helpers on hand to assist me, mall employees dressed as elves. Miguel, a young Hispanic guy, is alright. He's the one with the camera who takes the pictures. He's been one of my helpers for the past 2 Christmases. He lives with his aging, disabled mother and works hard to take care of her. He's a decent enough young guy. However, Caitlin, the helper who manages the line, is, well, not so decent. She's in her early 20s, has a nose ring, short, streaked hair, some rather unsightly tattoos, and a decidedly unfriendly, snotty attitude. She keeps rolling his eyes in irritation at having to do this stupid job and work with all these fucking brats. I know she feels this way because I eavesdropped on a phone conversation she was having with a friend during her lunch break last week. She keeps grabbing the kids who are next in line and ushering them impatiently up to my throne, like she just wants to get it over with as quickly as possible. I just watch her disapprovingly, feeling sad that she doesn't have any Christmas spirit and isn't sharing in the good cheer of the holiday. Some people are like that. I don't know why, though. How can anyone hate Christmas? But there are always a few Grinches out there. People who don't feel the warmth and joy of the season. People who are naughty and have to try ruining Christmas for everyone else. Like this one old man, Mr. Cranston, who used to live on my street. He was a bitter old Scrooge who absolutely loathed Christmas. He never decorated his house and was always complaining to his neighbors about the crass commercialism the holiday had been reduced to, that Christmas was just a corporate ploy to make people waste money buying junk for people they didn't really like and expecting the same in return, whatever that means. He said materialism had ruined Christmas and blinded people to its true meaning. I honestly don't know what to make of that. What's so wrong with wanting to bring joy to people by buying them things they want? By being selfless for one day to show people how much you care about them? Or Mrs. Headley, a mean old busybody who was always pestering me, threatening to complain to the city about the tacky and offensive displays I put up in my yard around Christmas time. I just don't understand people like them. How can people hate Christmas, a time of joy and fun? But I always remember what my mother told me when I was a boy. About sharing Christmas cheer with those who couldn't feel the spirit of Christmas. A young boy, Timmy Bateman, is sitting on my lap. I know Timmy. I know all the kids who live in my neighborhood. I keep an eye on them. Timmy is a good boy from a decent, hard-working family. All Timmy wants this year is a remote-controlled helicopter. I already know he's going to get it. His parents bought it for him last week. It's hidden up in their attic along with the rest of his presents. I smile and pat Timmy on the head, then hand him a candy cane and send him on his way with a ho ho ho. Next in line is a boy of about 9. Kevin Lang. I frown inwardly, even though I maintain my cheery smile on the outside. Kevin is not a good boy. He's a spoiled little brat and a bully. I've driven by the playground of the school he attends and seen him picking on the younger kids during recess. He plops down in my lap and before I can get a word out he starts telling me his Christmas list, not so much asking as demanding. I listen with growing disbelief, keeping a straight face, as he goes on, listing enough toys to stock a store. When he finally finishes, I merely nod and tell him with a slightly disapproving note in my voice, that's quite a lot of gifts for one boy. Santa's not sure he can fit all that in his sleigh. No. I want 'em all. I want 'em all. I want 'em all. Kevin proceeds to scream repeatedly, throwing a tantrum on my lap, until Caitlin comes over to take him away, escorting him, still wailing, across the mall to where his mother is waiting. I sigh sadly, wondering to myself why so many kids these days turn out like Kevin Lane. Spoiled little brats with unrealistic expectations and a sense of entitlement. Parents just don't know how to discipline their children these days. I know my mother raised me better. Spare the rod, spoil the child, had been her favorite expression, although in my case it hadn't been a rod, it had been my dead father's belt. And the pot of boiling water on the stove. And the dark basement. And the big medical book full of pictures of all the terrible diseases I could catch doing nasty things with filthy dirty sluts. And I turned out to be a very proper, decent, normal man. 6 or 7 more kids take their turn sitting on my lap, giving me their lists and having their picture taken. I don't know any of these kids because they're not from the neighborhood. But the next child is someone I recognize. Little Katie Mitchell, a girl of about 7 with a beautiful angelic face and bright blue eyes of heartbreaking innocence. She doesn't look happy like the other kids. She seems sad and shy as she sits timidly on my lap, her eyes downcast. There is a small bruise on her right cheek. I feel a pang of sympathy for this little girl. I know her father is an alcoholic with a mean temper. His drinking has gotten a lot worse since he got laid off from his job as an airport baggage handler. I know all this because of the hidden cameras I installed in the Mitchell house, just as I've installed hidden cameras in all the houses in my neighborhood where children live. Like I said before, I keep a close eye on the kids in my neighborhood, watching to see who's been naughty and who's been nice. Ho ho ho. I boom in my merry voice, unfalteringly, "Merry Christmas, little Katie." "You know my name?" she asks me, surprised. "Why, of course I know your name. I'm Santa Claus." This brings a small smile to her lips, which touches my heart. "So what you want for Christmas, Katie?" I ask her. She seems to think about it for a moment, then looks me in the eye. Her face is very serious and melancholy. "I just want Daddy to stop drinking. And stop being mean to Mommy and me." I feel something pierce my heart. I look at her, regarding her, then whisper to her, "Don't worry, Katie. I promise you Daddy's never going to hurt you or your mommy ever again." She sees the truth in my eyes and her face lights up with a smile that brightens my spirit. She hugs me. I hand her a candy cane and we pose as Miguel takes a picture. Then she climbs off my lap and scampers across the mall floor where her mother is waiting for her. Mrs. Mitchell is wearing sunglasses even though she's in the mall and it's overcast outside. I know she's wearing them to conceal the black eye she received from Mr. Mitchell the other night because dinner hadn't been ready when he'd gotten home from the bar he frequents most days. I watch for a moment as Katie's mother takes her hand as they walk away, then turn back to the line in front of me as the next child takes their turn on my lap. They call me Mr. Christmas because I love this time of year so very much. I always have. The magic and joy of the season. That sense of childlike wonder. Peace and goodwill and fellowship. But there are always a few Grinches and Scrooges out there who try to ruin the fun for everyone. I've been dealing with people like them my whole life. Like that bully Donald who used to pick on me as a child. My mother always told me I should try to show them some Christmas cheer to get them in the proper spirit for the holiday. I remember the special gift Mother had let me open early that Christmas when I was 10. A candle, a box of matches, and a picture of Donald's house. I remember the clever smile on her face and the wink she gave me. Donald never bullied me again after that Christmas. The fire department managed to rescue him, but he was badly burned and disfigured. His parents and little sister perished in the blaze. The police concluded that the fire had been caused by faulty Christmas tree lights. Donald went to live with his aunt and uncle in a different town. I smile at the memory and think about mean old Mr. Cranston and the tragic fall he took down his cellar steps that one Christmas about 10 years ago. He had broken his back but hadn't died instantly. Police believe he might have lain down there alive but paralyzed, calling vainly for help that had never come, for days before passing. His body hadn't been discovered for 3 weeks. And Mrs. Headley, who was always complaining about her neighbors' Christmas displays and ranting about how the holidays needed to be more secular and politically correct so as not to offend people who didn't observe Christmas. She was murdered rather violently in her own home last Christmas. Police believed it was a random crime committed by drug addicts who surprised her during a burglary. I think about bratty little Kevin Lane and how much he reminds me of Donald. Kevin Lane will probably grow up to be a bully just like Katie Mitchell's father. I think about my job as a home security technician and how easy it is to override a home security system. Most of all, I think about my promise to give little Katie Mitchell the only Christmas present she really wants this year. Kevin Lane and Mr. Mitchell are both very naughty, and Santa's going to see to it that they both get a lump of coal in their stockings. Both of them need to learn the meaning of Christmas, and be shown some Yuletide cheer. I smile and sit back in my plastic throne, listening to the song coming over the mall's PA system. The Muzak version of Santa Claus is coming to town. I play the words to the song along to the music in my mind as the next little boy starts telling me what he wants for Christmas. He sees you when you're sleeping. And he knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake.